Welcome to Thar's Garage. In this video, I'll be working on the Serpent SRX8 GTe long wheelbase, bag 3. So let's get started. Bag 3 is the continuation of the rear assembly. Oh wow, the rear hubs are aluminum. I have never seen that in a kit, that they come aluminum. The X-Ray had plastic hubs, so I am super excited that this is like an upgrade part. It's usually $40–50, so that's awesome that it includes it in the kit. There's two small bags. Looks like there's an axle bag and some bearings and hinge pins in this bag. Be careful because there are a lot of small parts and shims in bag 3A, and you don't want to lose those. So it does come with 2 rubber sealed bearings. I'm going to go ahead and take the seals off of those in a sec. Alright, so the 2 rubber sealed bearings are 13 by 19 by 4. I think I'm going to go ahead and open these up and see if there's grease inside. Usually there is, and if that's the case, then I will go wash it out. Yeah, so take a close look. You can see it's a grease filled. So I'm going to go ahead and take the seals off both of them. I'm going to go clean it out with some brake cleaner, come back and re-lube them with some bearing oil, and then continue with the build. Alright, so I went ahead and cleaned out the bearings. I just used brake cleaner and sprayed out all the grease, and then I dried it with some compressed air, and now I'm going to go ahead and put 2 drops of oil in there. It's the oil that I use, and it rotates much smoother now. I wiped the seals down with some alcohol to remove any grease that was on there. And now I'm just going to reinstall the seals. Now we can get to putting together the rear hub and axle assembly. So we're going to do both sides, but I'm going to start off with the right side first. And it looks like the hubs are bi-directional, so you can use either one on either side. So you're going to need one of those. You're going to need one of the rubber boots. It's kind of cool that they do that. Looks like some other type of shield. And you're going to need one of these cross pins that has a hole going through it. You're going to need your stub axle. You're going to need a pin. You're going to need the axle itself. You're going to need the 13 by 19 by 4 bearing that I just cleaned. You're also going to need a 8 by 16 by 5 bearing. You're also going to need a shim, which is 8 by 11 by 0.1. So there might be 2 shims that are in this bag, so you want to make sure you're using the right one, because it does show an 8 by 11 by 0.2 shim in the manual as well. So I'm going to go ahead and double check to make sure that I have the correct thickness. 0.1. We're also going to need our hex and an M5x4 set screw. Then we're going to need our inserts for the hub, and it looks like the kit setup is going to be the LH insert. So we're going to need 2 of those. So that's what the LH insert looks like right there. So we're going to need 2 of those. And since it came off a parts tree, you can trim if you need to. So it looks like the way it's going to install is with the H facing up. See if that makes any sense. Makes sense. So you go ahead and install it just like so. And that's how it's going to install with the hole on the bottom outside corner on the hub. Okay, so the hub's ready. We can install the 13x19x4 bearing from the back side of the hub, just like so. Then the 8x11 or the 8x16x5 bearing will go in from this side. Now it looks like I'll put our axle together. So we're going to need some grease. So you want to put a little bit of grease on this piece here. And the way to install this is you install it with the hole facing up, so that when you install your pin, looks like the boot's going to install like so. Just kind of actually probably best to install the boot first. So you have like a open end. So you want to take that the closed end or the open end, face it up like so, and work the boot over the ball like such. Okay, so now we can install this pin. So now we install that pin with the hole facing up. And what we're going to do now is put a little bit of grease on this pin. So we're going to take the stub axle and we're going to line up the hole through the hole in this pin that we just installed. And then we're going to slide in this pin here. Just like so. And then we can work our boot over just like so. And that is actually a pretty nice finish and looking piece right there. So there's a channel here. You want to make sure the rubber boot sits in this channel. mine wasn't, so it's not sitting properly. Just like so. All right. And then this black cap sits over and sits, supposed to go over the boot as well. And there you go, and that's how it's supposed to sit. Now we can install this into the hub. There you go. Now we can install our 8x11 by 0.1 shim. Just like so. We've got our wheel hex that we can go ahead and line up with the hole in the stub axle. And I forgot to mention, we also needed this 3x17 pin. So you can install that 3x17 pin through the hole. Make sure it's sitting flush or underneath the hex so you don't have any issues with getting your wheel on. And then lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to install the M5x4 set screw. And we want to install it with some thread lock so it doesn't back out. And I'm just going to hold it with my shock pliers to just cinch it down a little bit. All right, so this side is done. Now we can install this onto the chassis itself. So let's get to doing that. So to install it onto the chassis, we're going to need the hinge pin screw. We're going to need an M3 nylock nut, and we're also going to need some spacers. And it looks like the spacers come on this parts tree. We're going to need 2 of the thin ones and 1 thick one, so just basically 1 row. And trim if necessary. Careful because these are small parts. So the way this is going to install is the hinge pin is actually going to install from the front of the vehicle. And it looks like we're going to have the 2 small shims in the front. And we're going to use the outside holes in the control arm. So put those 2 . So another thing to note is from the manufacturing process, you have a side that isn't smooth and a side that is smooth. So put the rough sides together. So that way, when it does rotate and stuff like that, the rough edges don't prevent or don't cause the suspension to bind. So we've got those 2 shims in place. Next, we're going to install the larger shim. There you go. And we're going to use our M3 lock nut to secure it into place. The lock nut will shoulder out, so you don't need a, you'll know when it's tight. Okay, so that's how to do one side. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side and speed up the video so that way you aren't waiting and you can move on to the next step. All right, with the axles installed and the hubs installed, we can move on to the last step of this bag, which is to create the turnbuckles. So I'm going to do just the right side first. So we're going to need one straight rod end, one curved rod end. We're going to need a turnbuckle, and we're going to need, looks like, 2 ball studs. We're going to need one that has the hex on it and one that is just plain. Since I'm going to be doing the right side of the vehicle, there's a notch here that indicates the left-hand thread. Double check that. That looks correct. So we're going to put that notch on the left, which means it's going to go onto this piece. Let's go ahead and trim this. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of oil on the threads to make it easy to install. Just a drop or so. So it looks like it's actually opposite. The left-hand thread is on the side without the notch, and the right-hand thread is the side with the notch. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this. So not too concerned about the overall length that it needs to be. It needs to be 16.3, but it's much easier to install this onto the car and then make the adjustments. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. Okay. So let's go ahead and install these balls into the rod ends. And this is the orientation that it's gonna install onto the car. The curved end is gonna be facing the bottom. And to install it onto the chassis, we're gonna need an M3 by 14 cap head screw with, looks like a 3.2 by 7 by 0.5 washer. And then on the outside, we're gonna need an M3 by 20 button head screw. And then we're gonna need we're only gonna need 1 nylock nut. All right, so since the M3 by 14 screw is going into metal, this piece here is threaded, I'm gonna apply some blue Loctite because I don't want this to come undone. So let's go ahead and install the outside first. We're gonna install it on the second hole from the outside. And the screw is gonna go in from the back. And the nylock nut will go in from the front. Now I can get the inside one installed. Make sure your axle is installed. I think my link is too long to make sure the axle is installed, but we're going to be installing it in the center hole on the innermost row of holes. There's 5 holes, so we're going to be installing it on the center one on the insidemost hole. Snap that up. Now the size 8 wrench that you needed on there. And now I can adjust the turnbuckle to the proper length and not have to really worry about it. supposed to be at 16.3. So let's go ahead and measure. We're at 20.55. So that's 16.3, so we'll call that good. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side real quickly. So that concludes bag 3, the rear assembly. Both camber links are now 16.3 millimeters long. Everything went together smoothly, no issues to really report. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you did. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one where I continue on with the build in bag 4, the front assembly.